Would you describe yourself as somebody who's jack of all trades, master of none? Really struggle to nail down one thing when somebody says, so, what exactly is your specialism? Stay tuned. You're going to enjoy this episode, and I'm also going to jump into why curiosity could be something that could shape your path going forward. Keep listening.
You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, Shelley Rostlund.
Hello there, my friend. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully you've come to know that this is the place where we gently and openly talk about all the ways in which your personal brand meets the humans you serve. This is another one of my reflection episodes. I wanted to look back on the discussions that I've had with my new friend, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦, who's a global cybersecurity advisor, which was in episode 72, and the joy that is Matthew Attfield from episode 74, who is a strategic specialist working in the healthcare training space. If you haven't listened to either of these in full yet, hopefully what I share today with you will urge you to go and do that. There are now 8 conversations in this series for you to go back and listen to. They're all focused professionals in their fields, and I've chosen them to give you some light and inspiration to help you shape the version of yourself that you are happy to share with the outside world. So let's get back to what I wanted to get into with you today. From my conversations with Jake and Matthew, there were a few reflections I wanted to share, and those centered around these 3 things. Number 1, openness and curiosity can shape your path. Number 2, ideas grow from disparate pieces of information and experiences. And number 3, your brain wiring can actually be an indicator of your special talents. Hope that piques your interest to stick with me. Are you ready? All right, let's get going. My first reflection is around being open and curious. Both Jake and Matthew talked about this in their conversations with me, but they came at it from different angles, which I loved. So Jake shared how he felt his whole career path has actually been determined by his curiosity about people and the world that they operate in. When he was fresh out of university from studying maths and statistics, he followed his curiosity with criminals to find a job with his local police station. Now, granted, it was a low-paying job doing filing, and it was quite boring. But what this meant was he spent every moment he could actually talking to people around him. And as a result, an open, young and curious conversation with someone who turned out to be the commander of the station in the cafeteria at lunchtime ended up sparking his journey into becoming a trusted member of a high-level crime unit and paved the way for his 10 years into what became cybercrime. He uses his curiosity every day when he picks his projects to run and test how criminals would use AI and technology to commit crimes. He even turns these into keynote talks when he's invited to speak at conferences. I just love Jake's childlike glee when he talks about the world he works in, and he's managed to absolutely love whatever job he's been in since he was a young adult. And honestly, that's beautiful and incredibly rare to see, and I do envy him a little bit. On the other hand, with Matthew, his curiosity plays out differently. He likes being out in the world and being inspired by things, people, and experiences. He also asks lots of questions, but it's more motivated by wanting to understand how something works, how someone thinks, or how it fits in to what he already knows, or what's new that he can learn as fresh information to feed his brain. His curiosity feeds his strategic brain with more fertile knowledge and information for future ideas or connecting dots. This leads me nicely into my second reflection, which is that ideas grow from disparate pieces of information and experiences. Now, as a part of his work as a cybersecurity advisor, Jake is constantly trawling the net for research, and he has to stay at the forefront of what's going on in the world of online crime, technological advances, and also how far artificial intelligence is pushing the boundaries of what's possible. He loves testing what's possible himself and trying to think like a criminal. He gets his ideas while he's just going through his day. And he shares how, in the conversation with me, he shares how he makes a ton of tiny little notes all the time on his phone. And sometimes it's just a word or a phrase, or sometimes even a mad what if question that he'll jot down. Then when he sets aside the time to do the work on testing something, it all somehow pulls together because of all of these disparate pieces of information that he's collected. And when he's actually asked to do a talk on stage, he'll sometimes even turn that into a project as well. And he'll want it to make it really memorable and almost cinematic so that the attendees pay attention and remember the key messages that he wants to get across, which is usually along the lines of being safe online, or in how people use their devices, or in actually vetting people who contact them. Matthew's ideas, as I've already said, feed straight into his biggest strengths. So he can see the future, and his brain is wired to just gather lots of pieces of seemingly disparate pieces of information. He doesn't even have to note things down. They're just magically stored in his brain. Then his brain makes these cataclysmic connections, and his ideas of what to do going forward in his business or with a new venture will just come to him, and he can map exactly how they will play out successfully. In our conversation, I actually got him to complete his strengths profile, which is the first time I've done live on the podcast. And it's something that we do during my personal brand work and consultancy with clients. So I think you'll quite enjoy hearing us talk that through. So make sure you do go back and listen to that one. Now, my last reflection for these two conversations is that sometimes your specialism can actually be about how you are wired as a person, and not so much maybe about a topic or a subject. When you are a service provider or a knowledge worker, you may struggle to nail down what your specialist area is, and maybe even question whether you are indeed an expert in an area. Both of these gents did not want to label themselves as subject matter experts for different reasons. What I got from talking this through with each one of them actually helped me to evolve my thinking around the concept of a subject matter expert. With Jake, I got that he almost sees himself as someone who is actually just making a topic easy for others to understand and then to make better, safe decisions. He doesn't necessarily see himself as an expert per se. He prefers to look at what he does as an advisory role, which really a consultant is, right? For me, though, he actually has tenets of being an expert, because one of my main principles of good subject matter experts is that they've actually put in the time and the practical experience in the field. And Jake put in more than 10 years working on the ground with the police force in cybercrime, and he's incredibly diligent in staying up to date in his field. And on some days, honestly, that means being up to date up to the minute, as things change so fast in his world. He also practically tests and experiments on concepts and scenarios so that when he's actually advising people, he can actually speak off of physical experience and not just off-rote about something that he read particularly in an online article. This is why he's asked, this is my opinion, this is why he's asked back time and again on morning TV for national media outlets, because he speaks authoritatively, but also in a really easy, approachable and understandable way. So my point is, he's naturally wired as a person to fit in this world that he works in. From what I gather from him, in order to survive in the world that he's in, you need to have a level of risk tolerance, be playful, be curious, stretch norms, and have critical thinking baked into you in order to not only understand the role of cybercrime and security, but to also be able to communicate key priorities for the safety of the layman on the street, i.e. you and me. So Jake may not want to be labelled as an expert on cybersecurity, but I think his brain wiring is truly where his specialism lies. And if he ever found another field that aligned with his brain, he would flourish just as much. This is pretty much true for Matthew as well. He also does not see himself as a subject matter expert, and I understood what he was saying in the conversations we were having. And actually, he really struggles if somebody asked him, what are you a specialist in? Because he kind of sees himself more of a generalist when we were having our discussion. But when we walked through his top 5 strengths in our episode together, it became really clear that actually the way his brain works is really what his specialism is. This may not be true for everybody, but for him, it definitely is. So we talked about his futuristic focus, his strategic thinking, and also his ability to play out multiple scenarios in his head and then map out how to get from A to B successfully. He can not only juggle the day-to-day multiple balls within his business, as any entrepreneur would be doing on a day-to-day basis, but he can also keep adjusting their future direction at the same time if there are outside influences impacting what they do and who they do it for. Ultimately, we got to the realization that if you are in a naturally strategic role in your work and you struggle to nail down one thing that you're actually a specialist in, it may be that the way your brain is wired may well be the indicator of what your special talent or focus is. So, for me, what am I going to do as a result of these conversations I've had with Jake and Matthew? Well, firstly, I'm going to update my definition of a subject matter expert with a side note about the fact that our specialist area of focus could also be how to actually approach something and not necessarily be about the knowledge that we hold, even though that may be in the mix there somewhere. I love that we got to this point of realizing that the way your brain is wired can actually be what you are a specialist at, and that you can actually apply that to any field. For me, I have the similar strategic strength that Matthew has. It's my top strength, and I think it was his third highest strength. And I've felt really uncomfortable over the years in trying to lock myself down to one area. And being strategic is sometimes quite lonely. If you don't have anyone around you that understands how you see and process the world. So as I've gotten older and I've also done more work on myself, like doing my strengths work as part of my personal branding work, I've come to realize or better understand how I function. It's given me the insight to know that I do need to find people who get me and also where my time is better spent. I'm a bit different to Matthew, though, if you have listened to that conversation, because he's happiest when he's very busy and he's got lots of things to do, lots of moving parts, right? But honestly, that gives me hives, really. So our brains work the same, but I don't feel the need to fill my day with lots of things. In fact, it actually drains my energy completely if that's what the way my day would look. So I feel like talking to Matthew showed me that we can be strategic, but we can also be quite different at the same time. This is good, right? Because we can have similarities with people, but we can also still be quite unique and valuable in different ways. With both conversations, I feel like the concept of subject matter expert is moving on a bit for me. It's not as concrete as I thought it was, and people can function around the term but not actually be the term at the same time, if that makes sense. It's helped me to almost put together a list of what I think are definitely cemented for professionals who want to be visible and seen to be experienced experts in their fields or industry, but allow for this looser element of labeling themselves based on actually how they disseminate their knowledge and talents and what the end user or the client does with that knowledge that you disseminate with to them. So is it about directing action, or providing information to make better decisions, or is it straight up dictating or a non-negotiable way forward that almost will help decide what that label would be for you? Jake inspired me to also not be afraid of public speaking. I'm not necessarily afraid per se, and I have shared this in a previous episode with you where I did do a stage talk. But it does still fill me with dread. But with him sharing actually how his brain was processing those first experiences of being on national TV and how he just decided that's not something he ever wanted to do again, to today being a mainstay on morning TV, it's really just fueled my curiosity to see what I could do better in this arena with some practice. Matthew's love for travel, experience, and the reasons behind it has also quietly supported the me inside me who was feeling a little bad that I crave the experiences of being out in the world to gain all of these bits of knowledge and information that helps to feed my strategic brain. The grafter in me fights this as being flighty and a time waste. But what I've come to realize is that actually it's essential for my genius talents in order to take that time to do this kind of thing. So thank you, Matthew. And that's it for this episode, folks. If you haven't listened to Matthew's episode, that was in episode 74, and Jake's was in episode 72. I really hope that this episode has encouraged you to go back and find them and listen to them on your next drive or dog walk. I'd love to know what you learn about yourself while you're listening to those conversations that I'm having with the people that are out there forging away through this professional world, trying to bring more of themselves into their everyday. If you'd like to talk to me about working on your personal brand strategy and finding out how your strengths are feeding into your genius talents that others want and need from you, then please do book a convenient time for us to have that conversation, and I'll drop all those details in the show notes for you. Here's a quick reminder to support the show by doing one of 3 very easy things. Firstly, click follow or subscribe in the app you're listening to now so you don't miss an episode. Number 2, give a review if you have liked a particular episode and you want to let me know about it that way. You can always DM or email me as well. And third and last thing, just tell a friend, one new friend, about the show, even if it's just about one episode you've enjoyed. Everything just helps to open up the show to more diverse listenership and bring more people into this conversation of trying to be more of yourself, more of the time. Who do you know who could do with hearing this episode and knowing about this series of conversations I'm having? Share this episode. You know you want to. Until next time, my friend, stay strong, believe you have value, and yes, you know the rest. Make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗓.com.